Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick. We got Sean tonight. How are we doing, Sean?
Good, bud. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Harrison will not be with us tonight. He is in Florida on most likely another Disney vacation. More power to him. I haven't been once. He's been 5 times this year. So good for him.
Jesus. He's been twice since baseball ended.
I know. It's awesome. But anyways, before we get started, just follow our podcast, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and yeah, interact with us. I mean, we're only a few weeks away from baseball now. Pitchers and catchers report in just a little bit over a month, which is crazy. So yeah, just follow along with us there. All right, leading off, we got a couple things. So Correa, the Mets have kind of come out and said, here's the terms, either sign it or find somewhere else. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised. I think when we did this last week, right, we were saying how they're probably trying to work some language in, things that the Red Sox did with JD, and it's happened quite a few times, and it's not rare, you know. And I was on record saying I thought it'd be done by now. I didn't think it would take too long, and here we are. And I wonder if the Mets are just like, you know what, this is the deal. And Scott Boras is a shark. We know this. You know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Scott Boras is trying to get last-minute additions or last-minute guaranteed money, whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But Steve Cohen does not strike me as a guy that you can bully around. And it's almost as though, like, I wonder if Cohen has his attitude, like, you know what, man? Like, we tried to work it out. Like, this is our deal. If you don't want it, go somewhere else. You know, I think he knows that having the Giants deal fall through, and then now the Mets are not thrilled with the physical, and I think Harrison said either last week or 2 weeks ago, but he kind of loses the leverage now, Correa and Boras. Like, he's not getting another 12-year deal. Like, there's other teams that are potentially calling that are interested or whatever. They might be calling and they might be interested. He's not getting a 12-year deal. Right? If there's 2 teams that look at that MRI and they look at the physical and they say that they're concerned, and clearly there's something that Correa is not willing to do to make these teams comfortable.
Right.
Because, like, if there was concessions that he was willing to make, he would have signed one of these 2 deals already. So his leverage is kind of gone. So he either signs this 12-year deal with the Mets, or 11-year, whatever it is with the Mets, 11 or 12 years, or he signs a 3-year deal somewhere else and then goes to free agency again at 30 years old.
I don't understand that if it's the hesitation on his part. I see the hesitation on the Mets part, but why is Correa hesitating? Like, if they're willing to take a risk on this ankle or this injury or MRI or whatever, like, I'd be like, damn, you're offering me that? Like, I'm in. Like,
yeah, I wonder if
it must be the language, right? It's got to be something.
Yeah, and I wonder if he's shaking his head at the we can opt out after we can rid the contract after 3 years if there's injury. So, like, I wonder if he wants more guarantee. If he wants more, hey, yes, on paper it's a 12-year deal, but it's really a 3-year deal or whatever.
Right.
Like, I wonder if there's that he doesn't like. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point because none of us are in the room.
Right.
But I think the longer this plays out, the longer this thing plays out, I mean, if I'm the Sox, honestly, dude, and we talked about it in the text, if I'm the Sox, I'm going to him and I'm saying, hey, you're a shortstop, right? Do you want to play shortstop? You can play shortstop here for 2 years, $9 million. We'll give you $45 million for both years. You can play shortstop. You're between Devers. You're between Story. You're hitting in the middle of the lineup. And then you're a free agent again at 30.
Yeah.
I mean, this opens the door for teams like the Sox to do something like this. Like, we thought at the beginning, if you didn't bring Xander back, you're not getting one of the shortstops because they're going to do long-term, and you don't want to back up the position because you want to be ready for Marcelo Mayer in 3 to 4 years.
Right.
this gives you exactly that. This is almost perfect.
They did say that there is another team talking to him right now, but they haven't released who that team is. I don't think, I haven't seen it at least, but they did say that there's another team interested, and
that could just as easily be Boris trying to scare the Mets into agreeing to something so the Mets don't lose him. Until there's a team attached to it, I don't believe much of that stuff.
I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, I didn't really think about that. I just get caught up in the moment sometimes. All right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there very well could be, but if you're going to tell me there's a mystery team, but I'm not going to tell you who it is, it's like, well, is there really a mystery team then? Like, I don't.
Yeah, mystery team doesn't exist, buddy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The 33rd team out there is looking for him.
Yeah, right. Montreal Expos, just jump in there somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we'll obviously keep tabs on that. Don't know what's going to happen there, but the Dodgers did officially release Trevor Bauer. Other than the Sox, where do we think is a good landing place for Trevor Bauer? What team is in position to kind of maybe take a chance on him?
I don't know. Sorry, guys, I got this cough today. I don't know, man. I think teams that are in dire need of pitching aren't exactly organizations that can afford to take the risk that. I mean, again, we've said it, like places that where he should go and do well is a place like Atlanta or a place like St. Louis or even Boston in a sense, which like, we get fed up as fans, but like they're a well-run organization.
Right.
Like they know what they're doing. We might not agree with it all the time as fans, but they have a plan. They know how to run an organization as a whole. Like it's things like teams like that we needs to go to.
And
like
the fans have eased off a little bit since the Devers extension. Let's be honest. So yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. If I'm the Sox, I don't do it. Like I don't know. I mean, Harrison's right as far as his age, and it's all those innings that haven't been stressed on his arm the past 2 years. Like I get all that. I just don't know if it's worth it. But who knows? I mean, I might be proven an idiot. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. How about a place like Seattle? I mean, he could easily go in there, kind of maybe put them over the hump and get them out of the first round, depending on what their matchups are. He would be a solid number 3, heck, maybe even a number 2 there.
Number 2, yeah, probably.
And it looks like, from the outside, anyways, it looks like the Mariners are starting to get their crap together. Like they're not that laughing stock anymore. Like they're starting to put the pieces together here.
Seattle's a good one. Like you worry, you got to worry, or worry is not the right word, but my first thought would be like, I would want to get into a room one-on-one with Trevor Bauer. That's a young team. They got some young kids in that locker room. I'm not entirely sure I'd be 100% comfortable with Trevor Bauer doing his Trevor Bauer thing around these kids day in and day. Like, I don't know. And again, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's a nothing burger, but that would concern me. I would want to have that conversation with Trevor Bauer. Just be like, hey, kind of what's your frame of mind going forward? Like, are you going to be that guy? Are you going to be the old Trevor? Or are you just going to be the guy who's here to help a team win and make an all-star game and win a title? Like, if he's not the disruptive Trevor Bauer who's like calling out the league and trying to get the commissioner thrown in jail, like if he's not that guy,
right? Like
he's talented,
yeah.
But like every day, like for the first 2 months of the year, you're gonna wake up every day and go, "Oh my God, is today the day he does it?" You're gonna be scrolling through Twitter every day, like, "Oh my, what did he say?" Because it's like he's proven that he can't really keep his mouth shut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Interesting.
I think Seattle's a good pick, though, Nick. I could see that.
Yeah, but I mean, you also make a pretty fair point about the young talent not necessarily wanting to take a chance of kind of taken that edge off the young guys in there, But I don't know.
Well,
They've
again,
also traded for some veterans. They got Colton
Yep.
Wong in there. They got Teoscar Hernandez in there. Those guys have been around for a few
Luis
years.
Castillo.
Yeah, Castillo,
Yep.
Robbie Ray.
So-
I mean, they've been around.
That was going to be the other side of the coin that I was going to say too. Like you do, it's not a totally young team. Like you
Right.
do have some
Not the
veterans.
Guardians.
And so, maybe maybe it's a good balance. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a team I haven't thought of for him, but it's certainly interesting. It's an interesting thought, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I heard the Rangers could use an 8th starter at this point. So,
Dude, nothing would shock me with the Rangers anymore.
Right. But all right. So yeah, we'll also be keeping tabs on that one because that's kind of up in the air, and I'm sure he's going to sign soon because I'm sure he's going to want to get the pitchers and catchers fairly early if he's signed by a team. I mean, you've been out of the game for 2 years. He wants to be. He doesn't want to sign late.
But even I guess the flip side of that though is whether you sign today, tomorrow, or middle of February, you're not making the opening day roster.
No.
Right? It's you like at best case scenario, you're probably back in July.
Yeah.
Right? Like you haven't pitched in years.
Right.
Like I know he's kept warm, like he's thrown. It's not like he hasn't thrown a baseball in 2 years. Like, but like ramping up to get into like Major League Baseball pitching shape. At least if I don't care which team, if I'm any team that signs him, I'm not rushing him back.
No need to either. Like he's still fairly young,
Right.
like he's 31, but he's league 29, right? Because like we said, like he didn't put those 2 years on his arm. So I don't know. It'd be very interesting. I'm kind of, I wouldn't say excited to see where he goes, but like I'm like
excited. I am. I think that's a fair word.
Okay. I mean, I'm not like jumping out of my seat, like waiting for him to sign, but I mean, I'm curious to see where he goes, I guess is the word I was kind of looking for.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good word. That's probably a better word.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the big news for Red Sox Nation. Rafael Devers extended. It was, oh my God. So they avoid arbitration and everyone's like, okay, so we're good. And then it was like the next day they come out like first thing in the morning. They're like 11 years, 331 million. And I could hear Boston cheer from here, from North Carolina, dude. Like everyone was like, thank freaking God that they extended one of these homegrown guys. And we said it last week, like, and you brought up the point about having the cornerstone guy to build around, and we can't just keep watching him walk out the door. This was the guy to do that with, because Devers is here to stay, and he's going to be a superstar for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing more to add in the sense that it was a relief. I mean, it was a great feeling, but it was more of just like a relief feeling. It's like, all right, like they get it. And again, we don't agree with all the decisions, and we don't have to. It's not our money, and I'm not the chief operating officer or whatever Heim's title is, and I don't have to agree with all the decisions, but there seems to be a semblance of a plan now.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to swallow Xander going. It makes it easier to swallow Mookie not being signed, even though, and here's the thing. The Mookie trade and then him subsequently being extended pretty much right away by the Dodgers. What makes that the hardest to swallow for me is just how poor the return was. Yeah. I know you weren't trading Mookie for a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. That wasn't the plan. Like the plan was to get prospects, which I'm sure were likely like, hey, let's get good enough prospects that we can then flip for more younger guys.
Right.
Like we're not trying to get Mookie for a whole bunch of all-stars now. Like I think the idea was like, let's trade Mookie. We'll get a bunch of things that we can trade into picks, which we can then, and then that one guy turns into 8 people in the farm system. That's kind of how these baseball guys work.
Yep.
And it just, Verdugo's a nice piece. I like Verdugo. Like, he's a nice piece. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No.
Connor Wong is
wasn't
a 4A player.
Right. Wasn't Brusdar Graterol originally in that deal, and then he like the physical didn't come back or something like that?
Yeah. So it was something with his elbow.
Yeah.
Right? The Sox didn't like how the physical looked on his elbow. So the Sox nixed, instead of nixing the deal, they just nixed him on the deal. And then he just went back to LA and became a key piece of their bullpen. It was like
through 105.
Right. It was like every time he came in the game, I'm like, well, we're supposed to have that guy, so that's fun.
He throws straight gas, dude. That guy throws cheddar.
But yeah, he was originally part of the deal. Which again, when you look at it, and I know it's easy to just say, oh, Mookie was traded away for, a bag of balls. But the fact that Verdugo was in there, and he's a legitimate everyday starter in Major League Baseball.
Yep.
And he will have – I think he will. I think he's a much better hitter, a much more consistent hitter than he showed. I think he's getting better and more consistent. I think over the course of his career, he will have a couple of all-star seasons. I think he will be voted to 1 or 2 all-star games. I think he's that good. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he'll have his number retired at Fenway. But that's fine. But if you're trading away a young Mookie that you're not going to be able to keep, and you can get an everyday right fielder and a bullpen guy that throws gas to be the back end of the bullpen, like that all of a sudden is a much better looking trade. It shows you, like, okay, they can evaluate talent. Like, they know what they need. They know they're lacking in bullpen. So it's a little bit more complicated than just like, oh, that was a bad trade. It worked out poorly because Gruterol, or however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
They didn't like. So I don't know. I guess it's just a long way of saying it's a little bit more complicated than, oh, it was a bad trade. We gave away Mookie for nothing.
Right. I agree.
And my long circle back to, it's much easier to stomach the Xander now that Rafi's back.
1,000%. I agree. And the 11-year deal doesn't start until 2024. So the arbitration. Yeah, right. Arbitration covers 2023, and then it's 11 years starting in 2024. So we have them until 2035. So, I mean, awesome. Great. I will take it. And
you'll be getting your AARP card in the mail, Nick, when his deal's done.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. But anyways, what was I gonna say next? I just completely had a brain fart. Anyways, there's talks that the Red Sox and Marlins are kind of in discussion here for some of their young starting pitching. Now, I am all for that. I mean, they have a plethora of young starters, and Pedro Martinez has been very vocal about a certain young player from the Dominican Republic that he wants here. I've brought his name up before, Sixto Sanchez. This kid throws triple digits, and Pedro says he has like my stuff but can hit triple digits. And I'm just like, okay, like I'm sold. If he came to Boston and Pedro was kind of like a side mentor for him, I mean, that could be an interesting deal. Pablo Lopez, we know, is on the trade block. He almost went to the Yankees deadline. So, have we seen Chris Sale throw his last broken-fingered pitch in Boston history?
I don't think so.
You don't think they'll trade him away?
I think it would have to be a perfect deal.
Okay.
Like we've heard that teams are calling about his availability, right?
Yes.
And I certainly don't think the Red Sox are saying he's untouchable. Like, sure, like make an offer.
Right.
Like I am I dying to get rid of him? Probably not.
Right.
But if I can get, like, if it's Chris Sale and his contract, which wouldn't really make sense because Miami is never willing to take on money. But let's just say hypothetically. Let's say they really like Casas. Like that's what you're hearing from Miami. He's from down there. That's where he went to high school. They really like Triston Casas. Let's say they want Triston Casas. We want Sixto Sanchez in return. We throw in another prospect, but in order to make it work, you have to take Chris Sale. Do it. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, in a sense, like, I don't want to just get rid of him for, you know,
for nothing.
a pitching machine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, well, we have a rusty pitching machine, so let's get rid of Chris Sale. Like, no, like I still think he has some value. He's not the workhorse that he was 4 years ago.
I agree.
Like, I don't think you're going to get 35 starts out of him. God.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think the mechanics are starting to take a little bit of a toll. He needs to kind of retool and be. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to be a finesse pitcher, but I think he needs to learn how to pitch instead of just, trying to blow everybody away and then get him with that back foot slider, which is still filthy coming from that angle. But
I think it's been hard too. It's some of these things haven't even been like mechanics related. Like he had the Tommy John,
true,
and then there's just like other complications, right? Like, and then he comes back, and then he has the bike incident, and then it's like that's not or he comes back in his like second start, he takes a line drive off the hand, like that's not mechanics related. That's just such bad luck.
Right, and he looked pretty good in that opening start against Tampa, and then goes to New York and gets a line drive off the finger, and you're like, what the hell? Like, this guy can't catch a break.
So I think he knows. Like, I think he knows that he's at the part of his career where he can't just like Randy Johnson slingshot it by you every time. Like, he's got to set you up. He's got to learn how to. And I think he knows it. He's not dumb.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So I think he's already working his way through that. So, which is why I there's something to me. Sorry, I just got the national championship game on here. There's something to me. There's something to be said about a guy that like pitches like his nuts are on fire, and that's what Chris Sale does, man. Like when he's out there, it's like Max Scherzer has it, Chris Sale has it. Like, you see these guys with just like the fire and like it's like they're gonna go crazy, and that kind of mentality rubs off on other guys. Yeah. Maybe not the same way. Maybe you're not going to see Garrett Whitlock get up there and like look like he's going to throw at your head for no reason. But like that kind of adrenaline and that kind of like fire and determination, just like it's impossible not to rub off on the people that are around you. Like, to me, like a guy like that is just, if he could just give you decent pitching, he doesn't have to be your workhorse. Go out and get a guy. Like, go out and trade for one. Go out and trade for a big arm. And all of a sudden, Chris Sale's your third starter, but he's there. He's the locker room guy. He's the glue guy. He's going to be a middle of the road pitcher. He's going to have a 3.5, 4 ERA, like whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I want to see him come back, and partly this is just because I like the guy, and I don't want to have seen him throw his last pitch in Boston. Like, even if it's his last year, even if he gets traded at the deadline, like I'd like to see him at least make somewhat of a comeback.
Yeah. Just see what we have left in the tank there.
Yeah.
I agree. So it'll be interesting to see if that pans out at all. I know it's just been rumors, but I mean, I would hate to see Casas go because I have a feeling he could be a star. I mean, the kid's big. The kid's got a sweet swing. But for the right starting, the correct starting pitching, you got to pull the trigger. As much as that hurts me to say, I think we got to. And then we might have a Jeff Bagwell on our hands where he came up as a Red Sox and then, we're somewhere else. But
I get it.
Whatever. Yep.
But if it's the right deal, I think you got to give it some serious thought.
I agree. Yeah. All right, and then the only free agent signing that I had that was of any significance, sort of, is the Mariners did sign A.J. Pollock. Kind of a depth signing. A.J. Pollock is a nice piece for them. I don't know exactly where he goes. Maybe center since Kyle Lewis. Well, no, he won't go to center because Rodriguez is there. So probably right because Winker's gone. So I don't know. Interesting piece. Maybe just a fourth outfielder, but
yeah, I was going to say it could be a fourth outfielder, just depth position, which you
Yeah.
can never have enough of those guys in January.
yeah. So interesting piece there, but yeah, pretty awesome. All right.
I'll give you one more, Nick, for free agents, just to kind of keep an eye on. Clearly, the best catcher still on the market is Gary Sanchez. I'm interested to see. I mean, we're January 9th. Still hasn't signed. He's improved enough defensively where he's not just like a joke and a liability. Like,
Right.
He's not Pudge Rodriguez, but like he's serviceable behind the plate. He'll hit you 20, 25 bombs. He's a threat offensively at the plate. Could be a kind of low risk, high reward situation for whatever team brings Gary in.
Yeah.
I was thinking early today, if I'm the Sox, I kick the tires on that. See what he's looking for. I think they really like this Reese McGuire guy. I mean, they traded for, wasn't he? I think was he in our system before, and then we traded for a back? Did I hear that right? Something like that, I think.
Possibly. He was with Toronto, I know, for a while, and then he went to Chicago, and then he's back here. But maybe he was in the Red Sox organization before Toronto. I don't
maybe
know.
not. Maybe I just completely made that up. I thought I heard that, but
he could have been. I can't keep track.
I think they seem to like him, and I think he can hit. He doesn't have enough at bats. He doesn't have enough. Like, personally, if it was my team, like, I'm not sure I'd be 100% comfortable with Reese McGuire being my starting catcher going in.
Yeah.
Just with how little he's played at this level.
Who's our?
But I don't know.
Is it still Plawecki, the backup? Who's our second catcher?
Not.
And who's our second catcher? Connor Wong?
Maybe. Yuck if it is. But I just think Gary's it could be a low risk, high reward. He's going to strike out a ton. But, like, that's kind of what baseball is, though. Like, every team has a bunch of those guys. Like, it's just what they are. I
don't know who this clown is, but he's commenting on our podcast here. But he says Gary Sanchez, number 2, and someone who could get some ABs as a DH.
I agree. I like it too. If Gary Sanchez is going to be the guy, though, that signs the deal and then comes in, he's like, "Oh, I'm catching every day." Like, you're not. Like, I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that. But it could be, if it's the right situation for whatever team ends up doing it. If it's the right situation, it could work out pretty well because he's still a threat at the plate. He's only 29 years old. Did you know that? I thought he was a whole lot older. He's 29.
Seems like he's been in the league forever.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Al Gary's 29 years old. So it's like, this guy still has some years where he can step into them. So just a thought. Wherever
I don't know. I'm mixed feelings on it because the Twins made the deal to switch him and Mitch Garver, right? So they get rid of Mitch Garver, who was probably the best offensive catcher at the time. One of the best. Gary Sanchez probably at the time was the best. And they're like, all right, we're going to upgrade and go Gary Sanchez here. And he did not do well in Minnesota. Maybe it was the environment, maybe whatever. But maybe he was hurt. But I don't know. I mean, as a DH, I could see him coming in as a DH. I mean, why not? I mean, put some balls over the monster for us. I mean,
but here's I will say my counterpoint to my argument about Gary Sanchez in Boston. Gary Sanchez, to me, is the kind of guy that needs consistent, consecutive at bats because he's going to have bad cold streaks.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's going to have a bunch of overs. He's going to be like, what are you swinging at? Like, if a guy like that is only playing 1 out of every 3 or 4 days, like, he's not going to get enough at bats for the big offensive numbers to come in droves enough for it to matter. I mean, think about what the Sox have done. The Sox, with the move with Yoshida and Justin Turner, you have a legitimate guy that from all accounts, is probably going to hit at the top of your lineup in Yoshida, right? I mean, he's an on-base machine, doesn't strike out, walks a ton, puts the ball in play, and he can run. That's the kind of leadoff man the Red Sox have always wanted. So you think he's hitting at the top of the lineup. You got Justin Turner, who's largely probably going to be your everyday DH, but knowing that you just signed Rafi for 12 more years, you're going to want to keep him fresh. So I could see quite frequently, especially at the beginning of the year, Justin Turner playing third, Rafi playing DH. Well, if they're doing that, are you taking the bat out of Rafi's hands for Gary Sanchez? No. Am I taking what? Go ahead.
We move Casas to Miami. We get the starting pitching. Justin Turner goes to first. Now you have a room for a DH and Gary Sanchez.
Sure. Yeah. See, there you go.
So maybe there is a plan, or maybe I should just quit the podcast and go GM somewhere. I don't know.
It's options. I will say this though.
I agree.
That's a lot of heavy-handed right hitting. I mean, you still need a left-handed bat. You still need left-handed bats. Casas gives you a big thumping left-handed bat in the middle of the lineup that if you trade him away and replace it with 175 strikeout Gary Sanchez, I don't love that.
Same. Yeah.
But it's an option. Option.
I mean, it'll be an interesting month coming down the stretch before, pitchers and catchers report and all of that. So I'm excited to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the rumors are out there that the Sox are kind of looking at him. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I would like it. And I mean, I wouldn't love it, wouldn't hate it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to trade Sanchez. Yeah. I don't know if I'm willing to trade 200 strikeouts for 25 home runs. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to do that. Maybe he won't get enough ABs to do that, but that I don't know.
Well, if he's not getting enough ABs for 200 strikeouts, he's not getting enough for 25 home runs. That's the trade.
I agree.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if I would want that in my lineup, especially if you just went to contact guys with Yoshida and hopefully a healthy year out of Hernandez, and Verdugo's a contact guy. Like, I don't know if we want a heavy strikeout guy in the middle. I mean, Devers is an all or nothing guy, but he makes solid contact all the time.
He doesn't strike out a ton. He's not a big time striker.
But
Trevor Story strikes out a lot. You get a lot of strikeouts at Story.
You're right. You're right.
And that's okay though. If you have two guys out of your 9 that are high strikeout guys, but the other 7 generally put the bat on the ball, that's not terrible. But what you're doing now is you're essentially telling Justin Turner he can't strike out a lot. You're telling Tristan Casas in his first year you can't strike out a lot. You're telling Reese McGuire you can't strike out a lot. You're telling whoever your backup catcher is, whether it's Gary Sanchez or Colton Wong, you can't strike out a lot. Like, it's just you're putting a lot on the other guys just to, hey, we put all our strikeouts in these 2 baskets.
Right. Yeah.
Or you're just a team that's all or nothing. You strike out a lot, but you have a lot of it just those teams generally don't do well in the postseason. But
yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, like I said, like a lot coming down the pipe here in the last month, so a lot more of those little pieces will start falling into place. It will be interesting. All right. We put out the question for your top 3 pitchers with the best changeup, with the best change piece. I will, Sean, you give me your 3 first, and then I will read off Harrison's and then also the comments on our Facebook poll.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think everybody probably has the first one, Pedro. Probably the greatest changeup. Definitely great changeup I've ever seen. Pedro won. I have another starting pitcher, Johan Santana. I thought had a fantastic changeup, even though he wasn't throwing 100 miles an hour. Like, movement on his changeup, it was almost like a screwball. Really, he really had that down hard action inside the lefties, and it was just so difficult to track. And then Trevor Hoffman, I think, is kind of underrated with the nastiness of his pitching, or his pitches, I should say. But I think his changeup was. I mean, you don't have over 3,000 strikeouts without that changeup.
No.
That was disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. Harrison had Pedro, obviously. He had Tim Lincecum.
Good one.
And then he actually gave us some options. So I'll just read his whole list. Johan Santana, who you mentioned, Tom Glavine, and Jamie Moyer were his different ones. So, I mean,
Jamie Moyer also never known as a hard thrower, so his changeup wasn't necessarily about speed difference, but just such movement and location was so good.
I was just gonna say, like, isn't his fastball a changeup? I mean, it's fine. So we had two comments. Nate Dunkley said Pedro, Greg Maddux, and Jamie Moyer. So he agreed with Harrison.
Yeah, I think it was good. It just
Yep.
Moyer's not necessarily one you think of because he didn't have the classic fastball changeup pairing, you know.
And Brian commented said Pedro, which is going to be on everyone's. Greg Maddux, and then John Franco.
Yeah.
And John Franco's.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah. I have a couple new ones. So obviously my top pick was Pedro as well. But King Felix Hernandez, talk about a guy that could deal all the time. The guy was disgusting.
Dude.
And then the guy that closed out the game for the 2004 Boston Red Sox, Keith Foulke. He would close games exclusively with that changeup.
Yeah, changeup. Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good one. He would throw the changeup without even setting it up with a fastball. It would just be changeups.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like typically a changeup, in order to be effective or more effective, it's like, hey, let's set up a fastball, throw a changeup, get some. Like he would just come out and throw the changeup. It just didn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
that's a good one.
I went with
Keith Foulke's a good one.
All right, so we will choose a new pitch next week. Probably either. Let's rank the top knuckleballers next week. I mean, there's only a handful. There's only a handful. So we'll pick like top 5, and you got to rank them. Who had the best knuckleball? Who had the worst knuckleball?
All right.
So, I mean, there's only a few we can think of that threw the knuckleball exclusively.
If we did top 3, it'd be the same list for everybody. So,
you think in the same order?
Probably not. But we haven't even been doing these in order. We've just been doing our top 3.
Well, that's true. So that's why I want to rank them. So
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. You're saying what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying what you're saying. All right. Anyways, moving on. All right. So we are going to move on to 7th inning, where we released the all-time teams now for the AL Central. We will start with Harrison put out his Detroit Tigers here. He gave us the list. We start with Lance Parrish, behind the dish, Hank Greenberg at first, Lou Whitaker at second, Miguel Cabrera at third, Alan Trammell at short, Rocky Colavito in left, Ty Cobb in center, Al Kaline in right, Justin Verlander, your pitcher, your relief pitcher is Todd Jones, and your DH is none other than Cecil Fielder himself. Really nobody shocks me on this list at all. Maybe I would have gone.
No, I'm not really surprised.
Yeah, I don't think I would have changed any of these guys, to be completely honest. So nice work with that, Harrison. I had the Cleveland Indians / Guardians. I have Victor Martinez behind the plate, Jim Thome at first, Nap LaJoy at second, Omar Vizquel at short, Al Rosen at third, Albert Bell in left, Earl Averill in center, Manny Ramirez in right, Travis Hafner is my DH, and then Bob Feller and Cody Allen is my relief pitcher. I did get some flack. I did go back and forth between these two, between Victor Martinez and Sandy Alomar Jr. Sandy Alomar Jr. is a staple still. I think he's the first base coach for the Guardians still. Like, he's still an organization. He was a great catcher. He was there. Carlos Baerga at second base.
That's right, Cosberger. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, him and Vizquel.
I think he made the right choice, though.
I mean, Nap Lajoie is like he led all the categories.
They named the team after him. They call him the Cleveland Naps. I mean, they named the team after him.
Right. And then they were saying Julio Franco as well, but that's just like a generational thing, and everybody loves Franco just because of his batting stance. None other than that. And the guy did it till he was 64. I mean,
1,000.
Yeah, that guy. I also two people commented and said, which was hard to leave him off as well, is Kenny Lofton in center. I mean,
yeah, you know who else could have made a run for it for that center field spot in Cleveland if he stayed healthy was Grady Sizemore.
Yes, I agree.
It was like a 4 or 5 year period where Grady Sizemore was like a guaranteed like 20, 25 home runs from the leadoff spot. But then he'd get hurt in April, and then that was it. And then it was just he couldn't stay healthy. But he was really like he had in that short period of time, he was up there in the American League for best center fielder in the American League.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was good. Really good for quite a stretch there. And I went with Cody Allen. He's already the Cleveland Indians all-time save leader. So that's where I went for relief pitcher. And not going to argue against Bob Feller on the mound. I don't know who else would.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
go against him.
You're not going with Fausto Carmona?
Ooh, that's a good one. Bartolo Colon.
Bartolo would actually Fausto was a joke. Bartolo, you could make a case for.
CC Sabathia.
CC, I was just going to say CC too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but again, we're doing this for their career in Cleveland. CC was no slouch in Cleveland. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just reminding everybody because CC's overall career possibly could be all time for them if you add in his entire career, but just for his career.
Well, let's see. I mean, he was 8 years. He pitched more years in New York than he did in Cleveland, which is surprising to me.
That is kind of weird.
But yes, I mean, let's see. In his 8 years, let's get these numbers real quick. 8 years in Cleveland, 106 wins, 71 losses, 3.83 ERA, 1,200 strikeouts, 1,528 and 2/3 innings pitched. I mean, nothing. It was a 1.2 WHIP. I mean, it was good. He was good. He won a Cy Young. He was good. Probably not. Probably doesn't take over Bob Feller though. But he was good.
That's a hard no for me, dog. But he was good. I also had the Chicago White Sox. We had Carlton Fisk behind the dish, so he is now on 2 all-time teams here.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, absolutely. The big hurt, Frank Thomas at first. I did go Ray Durham at second. That's completely generational bias. You're welcome. Oh, Harris to go back to Cleveland. Harrison goes Grady Sizemore equals Byron Buxton.
It's funny. When I was talking about how Grady Sizemore couldn't stay healthy, my brain made that comparison. I was like, I'm not going to say that out loud.
However.
But my brain went there too.
Yep. Back to Chicago, I got shortstop. I got Luke Appling. Third base, Robin. I got punched in the face 7 times by Nolan Ryan Ventura. Left field, Minnie Minoso. Center field, Jim Landis. Right field, Maglio Ordonez. DH, Harold Baines, the borderline Hall of Famer. Starting pitcher, Mark Burley. And relief pitcher, Bobby Thigpen. I just got straight likes on that one, so I guess I nailed that lineup. So I didn't get any comments on that. So thank you.
No, I like that one.
Yeah. And I really wasn't debating much between anybody on that team other than, again, generational bias. I watched Ozzie Guillen play, at short. Yeah. But he just didn't have the offensive numbers. He just doesn't. He was a poor man's Ozzie Smith kind of, short contact guy, nothing much there. But, and I love Maglio Ordonez. So, and he could possibly
He could have been on the Detroit one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then do you have yours right there? Or do you want me to read them off?
No, I got him.
Okay, go ahead.
So for the Twins, before we went live, Nick, we realized that when we transposed the Twins one from what I put down to what I sent to you to post on Facebook, there was one missing. So what you should have on Facebook is Joe Mauer at catcher, Kent Herbeck at first, Rod Carew at second, Greg Gagne at short, Gary Gaetti at third, Tony Oliva left, Kirby Puckett in center, Torrey Hunter in right, Burt Blyleven starting pitching, Joe Nathan as a closer. But the addition there should be Harmon Killebrew for DH, which I think people were commenting for Harmon, which I did have him on there. But I screwed up when I sent that to Nick. I left out the DH by accident. So
the comment was by Ken, and it was hilarious. He goes, Harmon Killebrew, 573 home runs, not on the list. Yeah. You're smoking something you shouldn't.
Yeah. And so, but it's funny. So the reason when I was putting it together, the reason that I put Kent Herbeck at first is because Harmon Killebrew was my DH. Or else if there was no DH, I just would have put Harmon Killebrew at first base.
Right.
So that was just my bad when I transposed that off too.
It's all good. It was funny.
And then Kansas City.
After he said it, I was like, "Damn, he's not on the list." And then that's when I texted.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But
and then Kansas City, I think I was catching a little bit of flack, which I think some deservedly so, and some there's just going to be agree to disagree. Sal Perez at catcher, Mike Sweeney at first, Frank White at second, George Brett at third, Alcides Escobar at shortstop, Alex Gordon left, Lorenzo Cain in center, Danny Tartabull in right, Hal McRae DH, Saberhagen starting, and obviously Dan Quisenberry out of the pen.
Yeah.
I will say after submitting this and sending this to you, Wednesday, Thursday, last week, whatever day.
Yeah.
Willie Wilson is probably the right pick for left field. Obviously generational bias. Like I watched Alex Gordon play for the 1,000 years that he was in Kansas City. I saw him as like one of the 2 or 3 centerpieces as to why they won that World Series in 2015. But Willie Wilson's probably the right pick. He's got over 2,200 hits, led the league in triples 5 times. He was kind of an on-base machine, had 1 billion steals. Probably the right pick. Alex Gordon's a better defensive player, all the different gold gloves that he had, but I think I probably saw Alex Gordon's name when I was going through, and I probably gave it a little bit more than I should have, because then looking through, Willie Wilson, probably the right pick in left field.
Yeah, like I said to you a little bit before we started recording, was like Alex Gordon to me was like he was a staple of the Royals for so long. But
sure. Well, Willie Wilson was too. He played 14, 12 years or 13 years.
For Alex Gordon, like when he first came up, when they had that World Series run and they're going at it, and like he was supposed to be their next like superstar, their next stud, and he just never quite got there for me. Again, I don't know if it's because he was in the Kansas City market and we just didn't get to see him, you didn't get to appreciate him.
No, I don't
or he
think
just
it's
never
that. I mean,
quite got there.
Been career hitter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what he was. Hold on one sec.
Yeah.
You got me back?
Yeah, I got you.
It just like my audio just skeezed out for a second. I mean, he was a 257 career hitter. I mean, so it's not like he was a fantastic hitter. We just didn't hear about him because of Kansas City. I think you're on to something. But I loved him coming up as a young player. I loved when he was the centerpiece. I loved that Kansas City believed in him so much that they were willing to trade or get rid of and move on from Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer because they liked Alex Gordon so much. And I thought Alex Gordon and I thought Kansas City Royals left field. And that was probably a mistake on my part. I still think he'd fit great in the lineup, but the right pick is probably Willie Wilson.
Yeah.
And then center field between Lorenzo Cain and Carlos Beltran. This is solely because Carlos Beltran had 7 good seasons in Kansas City, 1 Rookie of the Year. Carlos Beltran, and this is no fault of really his own, was on dog shit Kansas City Royals teams. Like they just were not good Kansas City Royals teams. Lorenzo Cain was an all-star 1 or 2 years in Kansas City, but the 1 year he was an all-star, he was top 5 in MVP voting, and they won the World Series.
Right.
Big part. I think of him along the same vein as Alex Gordon. Is young guy patrolling that outfield, absolute.
You're good.
Just
Yeah.
he was it. It was. If someone's gonna argue and tell me that it has to be Carlos Beltran, like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
He was a good player, a really good player, and he had good years there. I think Carlos Beltran. I think Houston Astros. I think New York Mets. I don't think Kansas City Royals. That's just a me thing. But
I'm with you. I think of Carlos Beltran as a Houston Astro myself with Lance Berkman. It was Berkman, it was Beltran. That's just how I view him. Rudy did throw in. He goes, no Bo Jackson. Now listen, Bo Jackson's the sexy pick. He's a sexy pick, but he's not an all-time Royal. Like, is he an iconic player, athlete? Like, hell yeah, 1,000 times hell yeah. But he's just not. He's not in the top Royals of all time in the outfield. What he did in the 5 years he was there was pretty good, but it's still not all time.
It was fine,
right? And when I explained that to Rudy, he comes back and he goes, "Yeah, I get it, but it's Bo." And I was like, "All right."
He had the insane plays. Like he had the ridiculous assists from the outfield and the 6,000-foot home run of the All-Star game and running up the wall after catching the ball in the outfield. Like he had those.
But he also played in Chicago. Like can't
for
forget
a year.
That. Also in the White, right? But but still, yeah. But yeah, those were fun. We're gonna run down the AL West next week. I think we'll figure that out and we'll release those rosters next week. But yeah, I like the interaction we get because you know what? Like it's okay to disagree with us and debate a little bit because there are some people that are biased or they've seen other players play that we haven't because we're younger or older or whatever. But yeah, we love it. So
and listen, I have no problem admitting when I was wrong. I think the Willie Wilson one was just a miss. To use a baseball term, I swung and I missed. And I think that was after after seeing the comment, I did go back and look closer and it was like, yeah, it's probably the right pick. Probably the right pick.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. I'm perfect on this, so I never make mistakes. But yeah, it's all good. But all right, so we'll do AL West next week, and then you guys can tell us. Oh, the Blue Jays are signing Brandon Belt. Just came through.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
that's a good one. So you guys can tell us how wrong we are next week when I put Shohei Ohtani on the all-time Angels roster. So just giving you a heads up there. All right. We're going to move to our rounding third question, which it came up with. Since we're kind of choosing what, the top 3 pitchers in the game, what pitch would you want to be the best known for? So, like, would you want to be Sean Bogue, the flamethrower, Sean Bogue, the changeup guy, the nastiest slider, the best curveball? Like, what pitch would you?
It's one of two. It's either changeup or curveball.
Yeah.
Right. It's either like the Pedro Johan Santana changeup that just it's coming, but you still look like a fool.
Yeah.
Or the curveball that like I get 7 knee buckles a game. Like those are some of the best pitches. Like what the hell is happening? Mm-hmm. I'd probably lean towards changeup because I just think it's a sexier pitch. So I'll go changeup.
Yeah. I mean, when you just said the knee buckling one, the clip that pops into my head is Felix Hernandez against Adrian Beltre, and they're best friends.
Yeah.
And King Felix just completely breaks off this curveball. Beltre buckles and then just like waves at it, and then King Felix just starts laughing at him, and Beltre like sends back a glare to him. But I
Yeah.
mean, if you haven't seen it, like go look up that clip. It's hilarious. But yeah, for me, I threw a forkball / splitter,
Yeah.
and with the pitchers that have the best splitter, like your Roger Clemens and Kurt Schilling, like those guys, I mean, those pitches were disgusting. I
They would
mean,
just die. They would just
oh,
die.
gross. And I mean, I've had a couple good ones in my life, but I don't throw 90, 93, but I mean, I touched maybe 74 a couple times, but so it's like I think
I'll tell
it's
you
a
this.
splitter for me, or just a wipeout slider. I think those are my two: a splitter or a wipeout slider.
I wouldn't want to be the catcher that had to catch a guy with a dominant splitter, because for every 3 that drop in, you got to smother like 12 in the dirt. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, right.
and you got to smother them because they're likely going to be swung at. So it's like, I got to block this thing every time.
Every time.
Like, you can't just give it the old glove effort. Like, you got to get down there on your knees and smother it every time.
Yeah.
Like, nah, not for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm good.
Like,
thanks.
good Lord.
But yeah, I mean, some wipeout sliders too. I mean, some of those things are just disgusting. But yeah, I think I'd go for one of those too. But
yeah.
Yeah, so I'll throw out that question at some point throughout the week as well. All right. So heading for home, latest news. Baseball did get a little bit of sad news this week, and it was just released this morning that Liam Hendriks was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was very public with it, and he's like, "Listen, I'm gonna kick this thing right in the ass," and starting treatments right away. So best of luck to Liam Hendriks going forward, and hopefully he can come back and be the pitcher he is. I mean, talk about a dominant closer in his generation now. Liam Hendriks is a real deal. So that's going to be a big hole for the White Sox to try to fill here. But
yeah, I mean, there's some teams that earlier in the offseason were calling Chicago and asking about the availability. I know the Mets were one. Imagine if the Mets pulled that off, and obviously health is more important. So it's like, but just imagine in a vacuum, you get Hendriks in the 8th and Diaz in the 9th. I mean, you get a lead going into the 6th, and it's like, we have to score now.
Right. Yeah. If you don't score the first, you're toast. Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, we have to go through Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. And if they get us to the 6th inning, it's like we just go right from them to Hendriks and Diaz. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts. So. Yeah, I mean, that's all I really had for news this week. Did you have anything else to add? Was there anything that popped up for you?
No, nothing I saw. I think we're kind of – sorry, my pump's going crazy here. Yeah, it was a relatively quiet week on the free agent signings. And, I mean, obviously, Raffy was a big one. Carlos Correa is kind of in a holding pattern. So we'll see.
I did miss one. I missed the Gregory Soto deal to Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, we talked. Yeah.
I just looked that.
I like
up.
that.
Yeah.
I like that move for them.
I do too.
I like that move
nasty from the left side for sure.
Yeah.
There was a couple players moved in that deal. I don't have the specs right now, but it was a prospect, and my phone's being dumb, so I can't even look it up. But yeah, it was Soto and someone else for 2 players from Cody Clemens from the Tigers. And then
Cody Clemens. And
then
they got Nick Maton.
That's who it was.
And Matt Verling.
Which I think both of those guys saw MLB time last year.
Yes.
towards the end of the season. So,
Yep.
I mean, there's that Philly bullpen for sure. And I mean, Phillies are looking in good shape. We'll see how they pan out, but the NL East, I think, is going to be another crazy race going down the stretch.
Yeah. To be awesome. I mean, it's yeah.
All right. I think that's all we have for this week. Nice little short one. So go enjoy the national championship game. Go Horned
A
Frogs.
blowout already.
What's the score?
Last I saw was 24-7 Georgia. Early in the first half, and they got the ball again. So
plenty of time left. Anyways,
it's disgusting.
Yeah. All right. So just like you said, just please like, share, subscribe, all of the fun stuff. And I think we will have the crew back together next Monday.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll see you guys all next Monday at 8.
That's it. See you, boys.